Hello and welcome. Cam, don't look at me. I didn't even need to look at you to know.
Do I have something in my teeth?
Yes. Hello and welcome to WaveTalks. Today we're going to be talking to Halimah, an EDI consultant, which stands for Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. So, Halimah, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you do?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me here.
Thanks for being here, yeah.
Thanks for being here.
Super excited to be here to talk about the intersections between race and like the fitness and wellness industry. All right, EDI, an EDI consultant. What do I do? The bulk of my job is to work with organizations, and a lot of what I do is called organizational assessments. So say an organization wants to assess its practices and structures, to see how inclusive they are or how diverse or how they're addressing racial justice, which has become an important topic for a lot of people in the last couple of years. So I do a lot of that, and then I go in and I do assessments in a form of like I talk to their employees, I talk to their staff or volunteers, and then I find out what their experiences are working within the organization, and then we kind of assess where they are at in their EDI journey, and then we kind of build recommendations of that, and that's the bulk of what I do. And then on the side, I also do quite a bit of anti-racism education. So I give workshops primarily, and recently has been these workshops or presentations have been focused on anti-Asian racism because I present as Asian. So, yeah, that in a nutshell is what I do.
Cool. What drew you into that field? Like, how does one become an EDI consultant?
First, you become really frustrated. Previous to that, I was in communications. So, like media relations, a little bit of marketing, and then I decided that I wanted to torture myself and do more schooling, and so
Because why not?
yeah, why not, right? And because like model minorities, so like I gotta achieve more things, put more pressure on myself, and so I decided to do a master's degree in something I was interested in. So race was something I was interested in because I am of Asian descent, and I also wanted to really articulate my experiences. I couldn't put words, when you go in an environment and you're being like treated, something's not right, you're being treated differently, but you don't have the words to articulate it, you don't have the language. So I thought, I'll go register for this program called Equity Studies in Education, and then I thought, okay, I had no idea what I was gonna do coming out of that. I just did it out of interest, and then when I graduated, it was like pandemic. I'm like, who is hiring? No one's hiring.
Oh man.
And then but fell into a couple of gigs, like a few subcontracting gigs, like with the Vancouver Asian Film Festival, and then they have this subgroup called Eliminate Hate, and then the pandemic brought up a lot of anti-Asian sentiments, and then that's how I got into the line of work. So, and then I made some contacts, and it just fell into place. It felt right. I don't know if that was an answer of how you become one, but that was how I became one.
I mean, like, it felt right. I think that's Yeah, I
That's
mean,
a great reason.
that's a great reason. Totally.
You know what? That's it. That's it. It's just a great reason.
Totally.
But I imagine that, you know, when you tell people what your job is, do you get some sort of resistance from people, or people start to, you know, question what you do more, or they don't know how to react? What's that like?
Or like, do people, sorry, I just,
Yeah.
like, my question to add to that is, like, do people take it seriously? Like, do you ever encounter that kind of resistance where people are like, oh, really? That needed?
Totally.
Totally.
I feel like I'm very lucky in the sense that I live on the West Coast, and I feel like I surround myself with people who are generally open to discussing race-based issues in an open-minded way. And so I'm lucky and fortunate that I haven't had any encounters or any like challenging encounters to what I do.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, I'm lucky.
Did anything come up, because you said like what got you into this, you said frustration. Did anything like that come up when you were in school, like doing race studies?
As in like putting language to experiences? Or
Maybe in terms of like meeting resistance, like I'm not sure what the classes were that you took and exactly the content you were getting, but I've read from other people who have gone through some experiences that even in a class learning about racial inequalities, there's some denying of what has gone on and what's really gone on. And I imagine that's where some frustration comes from.
the frustration I think came prior to my education, like prior to me deciding, okay, this is a program I want to go in. Within the program itself, it was a group of like-minded people thinking, oh, this is needed right now. So it was quite it felt like we were working together rather than having against each other. But there's some stuff that still came up. Like, we were all learning, and I am still learning. I don't know everything about racism. I don't know everything about anti-Asian racism, and people's lived experiences are so diverse. And then you have intersectionality, as in not race, but you gotta think about class. You gotta think about people with living with disabilities. You gotta think about gender. Where was I going? But anyhow, within the class, there are people who are learning at different stages, bringing in their different lived experiences. So there were a little bit of like tension around, maybe someone wanting to center their experience, like someone who's like, yeah, but I am from this marginalized group and it's not as bad as, or someone, and then there's always that, reverting back to centering whiteness, as in, so there are dynamics where, who is used to speaking out loud and expressing their feelings or thoughts in a group setting, and who has been conditioned to kind of sit down and listen more or not express your thoughts. Like, I come from a culture that, like, if you're a student, you sit quietly and you don't talk, you listen a lot to what the instructor is saying. But then it's a different ball game for people who come from an environment where it's safe for them to speak out and safe for them to express what they think. So
yeah, I think my educational experience and family experience was like, yes, speak up, say what you want, challenge things. Like, it would be weird of me not to do those things, I guess.
But I guess that kind of tells you too that the environment you grew up in plays a big role in terms of how you present yourself to the world, whether that be, different because of race or class or whatever as well.
definitely, yeah. Yeah, which comes to like all the factors that also play into creating the environment that you live in. As in, I'm thinking about still like in a workplace environment, who's given, like what kind of tropes have we been exposed to? So like, you know, the heteronormative presenting white cis male person who's typically the leader or who has authority, who has power, and then you have you know, perhaps people like who don't look like that, or people who are, you know, been told by society through, you know, through many ways, like the media representations, or through even like policies like that have prevented their families from settling in Canada, or policies that are like targeted towards disappearing nations, that have conveyed messages that bodies that look like me or like my presence is have necessarily not been welcome in all spaces. So
You said the frustration you think actually came before your education.
yeah.
Do you want to elaborate on that? What made you feel really frustrated? What were you seeing that pissed you off?
Ooh. I felt like I think in the series of my career trajectory, so this was like after university and then trying to make it in a trying to launch my career, as so you say. I don't know whatever happens after university these days, but like you're trying to get a job, trying to be stable, trying to earn money, trying to establish your, you know, your home, trying to be comfortable. Like I had 2 or 3 jobs that made me question the way I was treated. There was one job in particular where I was in a team of, I think, 5 women, and I felt like it was quite blatant that my team leader, or the person that we reported to, the director, was very invested in advancing the career of only the white people within the team. And I at that time I didn't realize it, but looking back I was like, wow, like they were quite they were like meeting, they were mentoring these the white folks in the team. It was like blatant, like she would go to lengths, like she would like make sure that these I wish I didn't say gender. So they would go through great lengths to make sure that the white people within the team were positioned, like, you know, had opportunities to present their skills or to showcase their skills, whereas like the rest of us were just behind the scenes and just like, you know, doing work. We didn't have those opportunities. And I'm like, whoa, that was really happening when I was working. That's real. And then you have like microaggressions with people like I remember one at one work party or work event. I think the person I reported to was, I had a few drinks in them, and then they just came around to me trying to make small talk, and then they said, so is your boyfriend Korean too? And I'm like, I'm not even Korean, I'm not sure. Oh, okay. I did not know how to respond to that. I'm
No
like,
kidding.
okay, she's drunk, or they're drunk.
But that must have felt hard to like rationalize their behavior when it seemed like you called it a microaggression. Do you want to elaborate on what a microaggression is?
Ooh, yeah. So like perceive, like they're insults that may be that appear as backhanded compliments or maybe like statements. They're not explicitly harmful, or they do not appear explicitly harmful. So they're kind of like, for example, one example would be like, oh, you speak really good English, like, oh, where are you from, where are you really from, or things like that. So they're statements that are, they're utterances that are blanketed, they're kind of blanketed, so they come across as like compliments, like, oh, your English is good, I'm trying to tell you your English is good, but behind those statements are, oh, you actually don't belong here, or you must come from somewhere else, it's impossible that you were raised here, because
or there's an expectation that you wouldn't speak good
Yeah, like, oh,
Yes.
wow, like, I'm so confused that you're speaking such good English.
Treating you as the other almost.
Yeah, and that's always what it is it's othering,
Yeah.
right? But is that like when I look at Dee and I go, wow, you've got such nice hair? Because I'm jealous, like secretly on the inside, like
You just really
Is that-
want her hair.
I don't want her. No, that Nope.
Should we have a day where we shave Dee's head and
You
just
do a
like
hair
place it over top of your head?
no. I think we're getting way off topic here.
But no, Cam, no,
No, that's not a microaggression.
no.
That's just sad.
Yes, that's a white man sad.
Is that a microaggression? What's happening right now? I can't help it.
resentment.
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 Okay, I'll take it.
So then in that line of work and microaggressions, you said you worked in communications before. Did you see a lot of that type of stuff in your communications career and in marketing when you were working in that?
I felt like I saw it everywhere, not necessarily communications. I've been in places where I see a lot of non-BIPOC folks who are advancing, who are given these opportunities, and then I see the BIPOC folks who are just like, head down, doing their work, but like they're not given the same opportunities, and it's quite blatant. There was a few places that I worked at that was quite blatant.
Well, I imagine that takes a toll in a way where, because you even mentioned like that you didn't really realize until you were looking back after, like it almost must feel like you're just, oh, well, I'm not good enough, or am I not doing enough? I have to try harder. But here they're blatantly excluding you from something where you have every right to be there. And it's like they're gaslighting you and you start gaslighting yourself.
Yeah.
And it's like, how could you feel confident in a workplace after an experience like that? That's
Yeah.
awful.
Yeah, it's so I would say that's internalized racism almost, because I keep thinking that, oh, well, I'm being treated like this, so I must be like this. I must be not as skillful as my white coworkers, or I must not be as I must not have that go-getter personality, or I don't know what kind of personality you want succeeding in your organization, but I felt like deficient in some way, so I internalized that, and it affects me till today. Like, my self-confidence is something that I continually have to work on, because I keep gaslighting myself. I keep saying I'm not good enough. I keep
Well, it's a form of trauma, right? I mean, and trauma is. Sorry, I'm like looking over the bar to try to see you. There's a microphone stand in the way. But yeah, no, I mean, like that's a form of trauma that you're having to sort out, which is totally valid, totally relevant, and that's crazy to think that that's just. I mean, like, even I have to imagine, even if you're aware of those structures, if you're still seeing that, that's still a form of trauma. Because you're like when you're aware of it, it's just like, well, that's just how it is.
You can't unsee it.
Well, yeah.
and you can't, like, as one person, you feel disempowered to do anything about it too.
Right.
So, but yeah, trauma. It's a lot of trauma
Yeah.
that we sit with. So
And it's hard to hear that you have like confidence issues, because I know that, well, one, you're an amazing athlete. I've seen you do a ton
You've
of
set a
crazy-
record. You set a BC record.
So it's crazy to think that you have, self-confidence issues when you're so accomplished, not just, in your job, but also in fitness. So how do you extrapolate everything that you're learning as an EDI person and put that into the other part of your life, which is fitness? Like, how do those things intersect? Since we're talking about intersectionality today too. Why am I looking at you? I don't know. You're behind me. I figured I should give you some FaceTime. Hey Kim, how you doing?
How do they intersect? I can tell you how it overlaps, or how my trauma is carried over to the other part of my life, which I enjoy, but also which scares me. So the confidence issue, it's such a big thing. If you like, I know you work with my partner. If you talk to my partner, he'll be like, yeah, she's amazing. I don't know, I cheer for everything that she does, but like, she never wants to own it. So I talk about myself and I still have to distance.
You're third person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the reasons why I don't race as often as I should is because I am so afraid of failure and I don't have confidence to race. So that's something that my coach would tell you, like, and before every race, I place so much pressure on myself, because I feel like it's terrible. I usually puke. I go to the washroom before I race. I cry.
Wow.
I hate it so much. But then after I do it, I'm like, oh, best feeling in the world. But like, yeah, I rarely race because I don't have the confidence, and it kills me. It kills me because I feel like deep inside, I feel like I have a lot to give, but there's just a wall that I can't quite scale. And that's actually one of the reasons why I did the steeplechase. Was because I've been struggling running the 400 meters for as long as I've been running with this Greyhounds Masters track and field club, which is an amazing club that I belong to, full of diverse age and racially diverse athletes that are 35 years and older. And I've been struggling with the 400 meters. And so I'm like, this year I just can't stomach it. I don't have the confidence to run this really challenging race. So I'm just going to try the 2,000 meter steeplechase, which is absurd because it's
longer
with 5 jumps. But I'm
Why
like,
not?
but I'm like, well, there's no one there. There's no pressure. There's no record. Like, I just, yeah.
But there is a record, and you hold it.
For now.
Yeah, until you beat it.
But still for now.
For now, yeah.
So do you think that some of your previous experiences in the workplace and that you've had in terms of feeling that you're suppressed almost, that is inhibiting you as an athlete and in other parts of your life?
Yeah, definitely. I also think back to if you talk to my trainer, who I know you know, I think he would tell you that, oh, she just lacks the confidence. Every time I go into a training session and I want to beat myself for it, he's like, you've got a lot to give. And I'm like, oh, no, no, I have nothing to give. I've got nothing. And it's that talk, which I know it's just talk, but I know it's coming from my internalized lack of confidence. It's me kind of gaslighting myself. It doesn't seem like an important thing. I mean, yeah, she's privileged. She's got a trainer. She can go to a fitness facility, but it eats up at you. It's in every aspect of life. It's like I'm always thinking I'm not good enough for anything.
Yeah, like you have something more to prove with being racially diverse.
And when I think
It's shitty.
when I think back to my childhood, yeah, I didn't always feel like there was role models for me, but there was still female role models that looked like me, that felt similar to me, that actually increased my confidence, right? Because whenever, with the same trainer, because I got trained by the same person, whenever I thought I can't do this, I'm like, wait, I know I've seen other women do this. And even though I'm not thinking that they're the same as me, I feel more connected to them because I feel more similar. So I can only imagine not having that experience in a fitness setting or in another setting, doesn't matter. But feeling that you don't have like a leader, or that you don't see yourself represented.
Ooh, I feel the transition here.
Segue.
I love the transition. Are we talking about representation in the fitness industry now?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, should I
Go for
I
it.
feel like whip out my phone and go to my TikTok like
Yeah.
FYP and like, and yeah, I look at fitness stuff and then like all I see is all these incredibly beautiful white women. Like, where are your jiggly bits at? Like, where are our food babies? Where are these people living with disabilities? Where are all the brown bodies? Where are I do not know anybody that has that's Indigenous who trains other people. I don't know. At least I've encountered a couple of Black trainers. I've never encountered a trainer with a disability that's visible. Where are all these people? It can't just be all the people who are just in my FYP, on my FYP. Like, it just can't, it can't be these white, beautiful people when the world is so diverse, where are we all at?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh man, like the representation, like it eats away at me as well. It's not only the representation, but like I feel, and full disclosure, like I want to look like those people too. I want like my jiggly bits gone. I want to look good in shorts. I want a summer body. I want all that. Full disclosure. But like it also like I feel like with these kinds of representation that is accompanied by quite a harmful trope. Like I almost feel like a lot of the popular videos or the ones that appear on my for my page, FYP, I don't know, are, it's like videos like, if you want a peachy booty, these are the exercises you have to do. If you want to get rid of your jiggly, like chicken fat arms or whatever, I don't know. Like, these are the exercises you have to do. Want to make your waist smaller? Build your upper back. And I'm like, is this what it's come to?
Yes. Answer is yes.
Like, fitness has given me so much more. Like, why can't we popularize these tropes instead of like, I just want to build my big booty?
Now we're talking about the sexualization of the fitness industry.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
Which is at the forefront, because most people, when they think of fitness, they think of this, I want a body that I look good naked in. Right?
Well, and that's based off of like a colonization look of what the body should look like. Like only a certain type of body is meant to be fit and
sexualized.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Bang on, yeah.
But I think that's also an echo chamber with social media too, right? Like, you're dealing with everything that you're talking about, and then it's being like distilled down to its most poignant evil via like TikTok's algorithm or Instagram's algorithm or Facebook's algorithms.
I didn't even think of the algorithm being a factor in that, but it totally would be.
But I mean, like if you are like if it figures out that you have that like propensity to look at fitness stuff, it's going to throw like what is the most popular fitness stuff, as you're saying it, and as Dee was just saying, it is that particular aesthetic, it is that particular look or expectation. And I mean, even from like a wider perspective, and I certainly don't mean to like step back from what you're saying, but in my experience, you know, the harm that's done to people that I work with, like when people come in and they're so crippled, when I'm trying to say like there's so much room for improvement, there's so much room for, you know, like for you to like there's steps that you can take to self-empower yourself to like change how you feel and inside your body and whatnot, and they're saying, no, I just want to look like this right here, that's all I want to look like this, make me look like this. Also, can you do it in 2 weeks? I'm getting married. That's usually what comes up after that. Usually. But you know, it's you're putting so much more like spin on this like issue by going into those deeper things, and that's fascinating. Not in a good way. Like, frankly,
no, I'm like partially mortified by just realizing that the algorithm is perpetuating that entire thing, and I didn't realize that till now.
But that is super crazy.
It is crazy,
right? Because I mean, like we've already discussed, like you're dealing with this trauma, and then now all of a sudden, like AI is getting involved in like pushing that narrative more. Like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, and so bang on like the colonized
body.
The colonization of body image, like white, slim, like. I know people who are, I'm gonna say, like, who live in larger bodies, who are like strong AF, and like so powerful and so agile, that, you know, they don't get recognized, but then they don't get recognized as fit bodies as well, or bodies that are able to do these amazing things. Like,
yeah, there's an assumption that is made around the fitness industry where there's only one look. If you're fit, and if you don't fit that look, you're not fit, you're not healthy, you're lazy, or you're not trying hard enough. And there's so many reasons why bodies don't all look like that, and so many valid, fantastic reasons, or very difficult reasons that bodies don't all look like that.
But then on the flip side of that, you go for something like advertising campaigns where they use like all bodies are you know, like good bodies and things like that. Like I think of maybe like Dove, or there was an underwear company, a men's underwear company, that just did like models that were not all like fit and buff and everything like that, in different colors and sizes and everything. And to me, it's like, I get it, but it always also kind of feels like virtue signaling, because it is like when you see that stuff, the underpinning of that message
because
is,
it's not a normal ad. Where look at us displaying these
there's that
people and being different.
Yeah, there's that virtue signaling angle of it for sure, but it's also coming from a place where they're like, buy my underwear, buy my soap. Like it's not and
it's let's look like we're doing the right thing,
right? But which is the virtue signaling aspect of it. Yeah,
like when that ad looks like that, what does their structural breakdown of their company look like? Which is
I didn't think of that.
You come in, right? Like,
oh my gosh, yeah,
what
totally.
You're looking at, yeah, like you might have posters of diverse people. Like a very popular women's lingerie brand has recently rebranded a particular fashion show that they do around the holidays, where they have they're now getting diverse bodies, all different kinds, but they also have a major lawsuit against one of their factories where they have not paid their workers and owe them like millions of dollars.
Right.
So
and this
like,
is
really?
Yeah.
Are you doing something anyway?
So
yeah.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I was gonna say, sorry, there's like something in my mouth.
Something
is it
in
water?
Your flask, your water flask.
Air.
I just wanna respond to what Dee just said about, Yes. Oh, and you, Cameron. Virtue signaling. Yes, like you have this amazing diversity on your marketing campaigns, but yes, how diverse is your staff makeup, your employee makeup? Not only that, is your work environment, the way you treat your employees, is it safe? Are you making it inclusive? Is it safe? Is it welcoming to BIPOC, like a diverse folks? Are you doing all of that? And yes, are you paying your workers like equitably? Yes.
It's pretty
all
important.
that. Yeah. So yes.
How do you feel about a lot of those? Do you have an opinion on the ads that come out? So the soap brand that Cam mentioned earlier would be an example.
So I just get sued, not all of us? Perfect.
I'm trying to correct your mistake by
Oh,
naming
boy.
brands. How do you feel about that? Do you think that it's great to have the representation, which is really nice because it doesn't happen, but do you feel that it's actually being conducive to help?
I feel like most of the time I want to see receipts. I don't want to see what's on your marketing campaign. I mean, it's great. Sure, I'm glad. Now people can see themselves represented. So now they go buy your products. But I'm concerned about receipts. I want to see how well you treat your employees who are non-white, who live with disabilities, who don't.
Yeah, like who's actually profiting off of these campaigns?
Yes.
Yeah, you mentioned that in the pre-interview. Who's profiting from these businesses? You mentioned at one point.
Yeah. What? I know. Okay, so I'm going to go into contentious territory here. So,
Is there a trigger warning or anything?
for example, which reminds me, trigger warning for this podcast is we're talking a lot about racism, which also touches on trauma, personal trauma, and then we talk about a lot of forms of oppression and inequity. So I feel like we should have started with that, but I'm putting it out there, then you can edit it how you want.
Yeah, exactly. We can cut and paste.
But sorry, what was the question again? What was I gonna say?
Talking about who's profiting from like
Yes.
diversity marketing campaigns. You
So-
said, like where are the receipts going?
Yeah, so like I'm just gonna use the yoga industry as an example. I recognize and acknowledge that that a lot of people enjoy yoga, and it's their right to enjoy yoga, and I am so glad that you have found something that benefits, that brings you happiness, joy, brings you wellness. But I also do feel like industries like the yoga industry, being one of them, is quite problematic because you have the appropriation of a practice that comes from the global south or eastern countries, and then it's being brought over to societies in the global north. So global north being, countries like Canada and the United States and even New Zealand or Australia. And then they're kind of being appropriated because I feel like I have notes, sorry, so I'm gonna pause and I'm gonna talk a little bit from my notes. Sorry, give me a second.
Yeah, no
So-
worries. You're good.
So you're sort of bringing this practice over, and then it's almost like taking intellectual property from the East, and then you're turning it around to teach it and sell it at a profit. Well, nothing is going back to the country of origin. And then it also the way that I think some of the ways that it's being turned around, or the ways that it's being taught or I don't want to say modernized, but taught in our societies, the society that I have settled in. I think might lead to the erasure of indigenous knowledge as well, from stemming back to the countries of origin of this practice. And yeah, well,
It's interesting, and this might not be the same thing. So I've been doing my Pilates certification, and Pilates is named after Joseph Pilates, who created Pilates. Anyone who gets certified has to learn Joseph Pilates, foundation of Pilates. Everyone knows Joseph Pilates. Instructors reference him through the whole practice. Like, it's all about the white guy who started Pilates. So and I'm not a person who does yoga.
I just want to say, it's even goes further than that, because Joseph Pilates developed his Pilates when he was working in a hospital as a POW, because he was German. Like, let's put this together, in a British hospital during a world war.
oh wow. ...
Never, like, nobody ever talks about that. Everybody's like, well, he was working in a hospital, he developed these things. He was working in a British hospital as a POW during World War II. So, like, that part is excised because nobody wants to talk about that aspect of it. And I'm not
put his name in everything.
And I'm not saying that he had anything to do with the Nazi Party of Germany. I'm not saying anything about that. As far as I know, he was happy to be in Britain, from what I've been told. But again, it's interesting that part's always left out, right? Because that is a form of editing that makes it look better again.
But I think more so, like, so does all that history of yoga and where yoga originated from, is that always present in yoga teachings?
No.
Right? So we have this white guy that we honor in all our Pilates things, but are we doing the same? And as someone who, like, does not go to yoga, I don't know, but you've spoken about your experience.
I also admittedly have only gone to maybe 2 or 3 classes of yoga in my entire life. But no, all the 3 classes I feel like have not acknowledged the roots of yoga, or yeah.
I mean, like, I ran a Pilates and yoga studio. Like, it's one of my previous things, and I can 100% guarantee that there was one teacher who she was this battle axe that had, like, lived a whole life, and she was just an amazing human being. And I hope she's still around. I only speak in past tense because of the fact that was when I encountered her, was in the past, and I haven't seen her since. So, but she did laughing yoga, and she rolled into the studio, and she was like, I can offer this thing. And I was like, that's fascinating. I have no idea. Let's do it. And then, but, like, she was the only one that actually would, like, she'd have everybody sit in a circle, and she'd start by telling everybody about the roots of yoga, and, like, where it came from and what it was all about, and why, like, because laughing yoga isn't like suffice it to say, many people were confused.
Typical yoga.
Well, many people were confused because all you did was sit in a circle and force yourself to laugh.
That sounds horrifying, but also, like, freeing at the same time.
It's a whole different thing. But, like, isn't it weird that, like, the only time that, like, we had a yoga class that wasn't, like, physical, like, hatha work, like actual moves, you're literally sitting in a circle, like, and you would make, like, a laughing face, and I'm not going to do it because this is on camera, but, like, you'd make a laughing face, and then everybody would just, like, laugh, like, force themselves to laugh. And I was, like, my office was on the other side of a wall. It was terrifying. It was terrifying. But she would always start by acknowledging, like, this is where yoga comes from. This is what it's all about. The history of it is, but she had studied in India. Like, she had been there. She had been a part of it. She was kind of, like, at the tail end of the like, hippie revolution, where the Beatles got into Eastern culture and, like, the Ravi Shankar era, and it motivated her to go there and join an ashram and, like, be a part of it. So, like, she really had that, like, kind of, like, touch point of like being there and respected the culture. And that was of the 5 years that I was there, that's the only memory I have of anybody ever acknowledging that. So it's a really like interesting point to make. And myself, I actually I've got a hatha certification as well, and it was never covered. It was very, very much about just like the physical aspects of yoga. And you'd get like the Sanskrit name of the move, and that's about as connected as it would be. And then you'd get like whatever the English translation was, right? Like you'd get like Shavasana or corpse pose. And then you'd always refer to it as Shavasana or corpse pose because that's how you were taught. So yeah, wow. Okay. Brain broken. Moving on.
But like, that's one part of it. Like the not acknowledging that this knowledge comes from the East. It's also the question that I have is, you're fine with importing or bringing over this wonderful practice from the East, but like it just doesn't, there's a inconsistency or incongruence between that enthusiasm around bringing that practice over and then the way that people from the East are also treated.
Which you see a lot across different cultures, where it's like, love your culture, love your practices, but not when you're here, right? And you see that a lot in, as an example, Black culture in the United States, right? So is that kind of what you're extrapolating with the yoga industry, for example?
That's a good parallel.
Like love your food, but not your you.
Yeah, like I love, yes, I love Serena Williams, kind of. I love hip hop music. I love the responding to like in the US where Black culture, like Black performances
as entertainment.
Yes, for the masses, but then on the streets, like Black bodies are not being treated with respect in the same way. Like I think one of the
well, in sport especially, like if we're gonna have that conversation, like in sports, Black bodies are seen as amazing. They're amazing at sports. But then in like microaggressions, small little instances where, you know, people are afraid to pass somebody on the street, that doesn't make any sense.
Well, even within the league.
Right?
Like NFL right now is dealing with a lawsuit. There's a Black coach who said that essentially the NFL is not providing opportunities for him that they are providing for like white coaches, and they're not doing enough to include so example in soccer, it's very, very common for former players to become coaches and to become prolific coaches, and there's like more and more kind of like representation in coaching in soccer that you're seeing, and it's not happening in football, and in fact it's still quite the opposite. So this coach has actually like filed a lawsuit alleging racism against the NFL in coaching, which again, like you're saying, it's like I don't want to say this, but it's like they're kind of suggesting that that's the role of Black people, is to be the athlete but not the coach.
We've chatted about like even this trope is in like the media, like movies, where the coach is always the one who's white, who
which is like a hero.
Right, in the pre-interview we were talking about
White savior.
I was saying white savior. Every single sports movie, not every single, but almost every single sports movie I've ever watched, it's some, you know, in a bad neighborhood with some white savior who comes in, and you know, and these are stories that we're telling about sports and fitness a lot of the time, is that sports saves at troubled youth, but by a white person. And you see that frequently. I can think of a number of films off the top of my head, including Oscar winners and stuff like that too.
Well, I mean, The Blind Side comes to mind.
That was one of my top 5 I was thinking of.
Yeah.
But then was it Remember the Titans? Denzel Washington was the coach.
And there's Coach Carter, which
And then,
was
Samuel
But
Jackson.
again, they're both at troubled youth. It's always troubled youth in typically Black communities. And so we're always saying that you have to have a certain type of body to be successful in sport, but you can't go beyond that, which is super interesting.
Or you can't fit anywhere in this society outside of the sport that you excel at.
You exist only for our entertainment and for you to trade from
wow.
like groups. Or if and I'm so happy to see athletes of color, indigenous athletes, even like athletes with different bodies, with living with disabilities, whatnot, female athletes. But then also, like we mentioned it in the pre-interview as well, like their bodies are so heavily policed, like Serena Williams, or you only exist as an athlete. This is your job. You're not supposed to do any kind of protesting, any political statements. Referring to Colin Kaepernick here, take a knee, your career's over. Like,
Just insane.
So this is, you can't be fully human in your own profession.
Yeah.
You only exist to do a certain thing, which is to entertain us. Do you see, like,
But
yeah,
even beyond that, like it's sports and celebrity is such like a microcosm in terms of like the number of people that are actually involved, because that's what makes celebrity is the rarity of that circumstance, except for TikTok celebrities, and like everything is like so on display and so performative in terms of like, you know, like celebrity. And like when you talk about body policing of these people, I think the very insidious part of that kind of loops back to something we've talked about earlier, is something that you were particularly talking about, is when somebody sees somebody like Serena Williams or you know, name another athlete here, who then is like, you're then seeing these headlines where it is critical of like food decisions or like
Trying to
body
control
shape
them.
or what have you, like that it becomes that policing. Then like if you've identified with them, like do you start to internalize those policing notes onto yourself, like, oh shit.
Well, because it feels like subliminal messaging, right?
Right. Like this is like, I mean, John Carpenter was right when he made They Live. Like everything in that movie is spot on. Like it's a whole thing. Rowdy Roddy Piper, I'm just saying. Different. That's a whole different.
It's come onto Netflix, I believe.
Is it? Oh, it's a totally different conversation to have. But I mean, at the same time, like it's all about this, like this subtle influence of you know, like this oppressive society that's like pushing these messages onto people. And I can't help but like make that association to like what you're talking about again with like, you know, if a child looks up to Serena Williams and like sees somebody that looks like them, that, you know, they can like, you know, like kind of create that connection with, and then all of a sudden they're seeing all these negative things about like Serena Williams, like who she chooses to be in a relationship with, or like has she put on weight, or like, you know, is she secretly a man, like all these
Is her
stupid
skirt too short?
all these stupid fucking things that
Or-
like they kept like
Or
like
that
just
while ago when they didn't want her to make noise.
yeah.
right.
She wasn't allowed to make noise when she hit the ball.
Whereas Rafael Nadal,
Nadal,
yeah, is like sounds like he's having a mini orgasm every time he hits the ball. And everybody's like, oh, that's just his signature sound. Right? Like, I mean, like
But if a black
So it's like-
woman does it,
It's not okay, apparently.
But-
and it's like
but,
putting
like-
somebody else up on a pedestal.
but
right?
what that all comes down to is like, what about that kid? What about that kid that feels
watching
like
this.
that's watching all that happen? Then all of a sudden they're internalizing that, like, oh, like I guess I'm not supposed to do that either, like because they don't
And that's
have
kind of what you're talking about with
Yeah.
the confidence.
right.
Yeah.
Man, oh man, I'm getting it. I'm learning. I love this. This is great. Thank you so much.
Please don't say as a white man that you're getting it. It's
Oh, shit.
dangerous. just go like, okay, yeah. No, I'm kidding.
I don't know what to do right now. Like, you don't understand how uncomfortable this is.
Okay. I have a comeback to that. Like,
But it's good. I'm actually like, it's good that we're uncomfortable, right? Because this
Yeah.
whole process, it should be uncomfortable.
No,
it's something that we have to talk about.
Well, it's like, it is something that only in my experience, like, I got to shut the fuck up and just like listen.
yeah.
That's the point, right? And I'm grateful for this, and this part is getting cut out. Trust me. Trust me. That's me pointing at me while I'm editing this.
To remind yourself.
Oh yeah,
to cut it out.
totally. But I want to so I don't want to take the conversation in a different direction, but I'm fascinated about the fact that you do this work. And one of the things that I wanted to ask you was, like, what kind of companies hire you? What kind of companies employ an EDI consultant? And I want to follow that up with, what kind of companies would you like to work with that aren't getting you? So answer the first one first, and then the second one second, because I see the second one kind of got your attention. But I want to know, like, who hires you, like who is hiring you, and then who do you want to work with?
Or who should you work with?
Without naming names, obviously.
Industries.
Wow, I am primarily right now. I've been doing this for about, let's say, almost 2 years. So I'm still relatively new. So I don't have the luxury of picking what kind of companies I want to work with. I just say yes to everybody right now, or most people. Primarily right now it has been nonprofits, a lot of public agencies, a lot of even some youth groups like student societies, or some youth-led groups. So yeah, without giving names, those are who I work with. And I also I work primarily with one full service equity and diversity firm. So it's which projects are being doled out to me or offered to me, and I just say yes. So I'm still early on in my career. I don't have the luxury to say no, or I just say yes to a lot of things right now.
If it's not,
I was just going to say, it's interesting that it sounds like mostly nonprofit versus public or private.
well, I was gonna say, like, maybe some more forward-thinking type businesses, like you say, some student-led ones who are thinking about this stuff and realizing that there's been an issue and a lack of representation for a long time. So
yeah. So you're right. Those people who are realizing that there needs to be change the way that they do things, or who are interested in making things better for people that they interact with, or who they hire or work with, and who are brave enough, I want to say brave enough, to come and acknowledge that, hey, we're not there, we want to get there. Because it is, I feel like a lot of this work depends on, or a lot of this rests on how, I hate this word, vulnerable you want to be in acknowledging that we haven't maybe been so good in the past, and we want to be better, but we don't know much. So a lot of that rests on the willingness to acknowledge that. So yes, there's a certain kind of certain industry or certain fields or certain organizations are inclined to think that way, as opposed to we are informable, we are a mean cash making machine, and we grow year after year. I'm like, sorry, I just can't, I don't know. And then so that's who I tend to work with these. So that's why when you ask, like, have I, encountered a lot of pushback in my line of work? No, because I've been lucky enough to work with folks who are there to listen and learn and improve. So that's, I've been really lucky.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's well, and it sounds like people who are like seeking you out, and especially I guess with nonprofits, they are serving lots of diverse or vulnerable communities, so they want to make sure they know how to help, and make sure they're boosting their employees within.
Yeah.
So then what kind of companies would you want to work with? Which industries do you feel really need your help as an EDI consultant?
All of them.
Because I was really excited. I was excited and also not excited. Not excited because I felt like I had a lot of work to do. And I'm like, oh, this is another thing on my plate. But I was really excited when you asked Jessica and Dee and Cam if I would come and chat with you about this. Because I love sports and fitness. I love that industry, and I wish there would be more of an opportunity to work with, to align my expertise with my passion. So it would be nice to yeah, it would be nice to align these two together. It would be nice to work with a lot of with more sportsy stuff. Sportsy.
Athleting.
Athleting, yeah.
Athleting.
Athleting.
Well, and it's needed. Like it's clearly needed. As you've expressed, you deal with, I guess, the oppression that not just the fitness industry, but that you face. Like that comes up in your athletic endeavors already. So
yeah. Yeah. I don't know what else. Yes. That's
So then I have a question about, let's say we took a typical fitness business, okay? And you were coming in to help them do some consulting and kind of examine their practices, policies, hiring arrangements, whatever. What do you think would be a common theme that you would see in this general fitness business?
I think the first low-hanging fruit for me would be how diverse is your team, like, so it is important. Diversity is important. It's not achievable, I know, for some, but it's important because if I'm a woman of color, I come into the gym and I see like a leader, like, a face who looks a body, or someone that represents me. I'm like, okay, instantly comfortable. I know the space is not just for white or able-bodied, or for just a certain demographic of the population. And then if you do have representation, then I would probably want to chat with the BIPOC folks, or folks who are marginalized in other ways. I don't want to talk about their lived experiences and ask how safe the working environment is for you. Like, what would you like to see more of? Like, talk about what their lived experiences are. And it never, I feel like when I go into places to do organizational assessments, I feel like they're like, oh, you're coming here to find out how bad I am. But it's not that. It's more like, I'm also coming here to find out what your strengths are. How can we build on that? Or what you're missing, or what your blind spots are. I'm here to help you. For the lack of better phrasing, like, to become better, I'm helping you to I'm helping to build on your strengths as well. Because not every place that I go into, some people have already good practices that they just need to be fleshed out, or they need to communicate better. We are doing this in our workplace. I'm sorry you didn't know before, but there's a safeguard here in case this happens to you. We have this procedure and policy. we want to know that you're being taken care of. Like, so it's not always like, oh, you're not doing this, you're not doing that, but it's also, you're not communicating this. It's great that you have this, but you have to tell people. Sorry, that's Jeff, probably.
Oh.
But yeah, that's how I also work. And then there's also aspects like, is your space like accessible to people who use mobility aids? Like I belong to quite a few gyms, and I can say that only 1 or 2 are accessible to people who utilize mobility aids, which is kind of sad, because I think everybody has the right to fitness. I think everyone has a right to move and take advantage of amenities. So
yeah, and it's interesting because like if you look at like public spaces when they're designed, they're always highly inclusive of mobility and what have you. But then you look at private spaces and you know, there's a set of stairs that like D can hardly climb, let alone you know, like, but I mean, like there's no elevator, there's no escalator, there's no she fell up the stairs once and injured herself. It's pretty funny.
Never lived that down, I guess.
It's on a podcast now. But I'm just saying, like it is interesting to see that, like that difference of like there's definitely a different standard in especially like private business and stuff like that. And that actually is interesting to me because you know, like kind of opening this back up to a wider stance, and including ableism as well. Like what are, like if a company works with you, what kind of, you know, you talked about like kind of what you can do, but like what are the tangible outcomes of working with an EDI consultant?
Tangible outcomes.
Yeah, so we've worked with you, you've provided the report, you know, and then when you're like, when you kind of walk away from it, like you've provided this report, you know, like I guess my concern is like what would you hope that the company does with that report, like
instead of just being like,
changes,
we did this thing.
Yeah, exactly. Because otherwise
Bye.
it becomes like virtue signaling again,
Yeah.
right? So what kind of tangible like outcomes are you wanting to see from a company that you work with? What kind of changes?
I feel like if I like the company, I hope that they come to me and say, hey, can we have a little bit more help in like implementing these recommendations?
Yeah.
And then I hope that they, well, obviously, I hope that they implement some recommendations. Let me think about that question. What do I hope they do? Yeah. I basically hope they actually implement like my suggestions and recommendations. I mean, why you've paid me a lot of money to say a lot of things. Well, not a lot of money. Well, yeah, you've done this. Like now, I'd like you to take ownership and also take ownership of that, and like do. Like, I'm not expecting you to change overnight. I'm expecting you to maybe sit down and think about what can we do in the short term that's reachable, that's within the scope of resources and energy levels, and then think hard about really implementing stuff. Like, I think I mentioned that during our pre-interview, it doesn't have to be big changes that you make. Like sometimes it's just small changes to your policies. Like sometimes it's small changes to, you know, small changes that can make clients maybe feel more welcome, like asking about like types of music, like playing the types of music in the gym, making sure that, you know, it's not, it doesn't have any slur words or any, I don't know how to.
Yeah, like slang that's inappropriate.
Yeah, slang that's inappropriate. Yes, exactly. It's just small changes like this, like maybe just like establishing a checklist that you can do with your clients, or establishing.
Well,
like,
asking pronouns, asking preferred name, asking like do you feel uncomfortable in certain types of situations? Do you want to share that with us? And actually taking those into account, I would imagine, is a huge part of that.
Absolutely, yeah. And like also recognizing where your gaps are, maybe feeling like seeking knowledge to just learn more about what you need to be better. Like, so I hope there is some sort of movement, like it's not just a checklist. And yeah, to take ownership of like, really, let's do this. Yeah, and that it doesn't have to be this big scary thing, because I understand, like, and we've talked about this, that it's a lot of people think, oh yeah, okay, well, she's coming in to assess and she's coming up with all these recommendations, we're gonna have to hire new people, we're gonna have to do this, we're gonna have to change all the policies. No, you do what you can. It's like fitness. You don't go in and you like deadlift like 300 pounds when you haven't been active for like years. You build up to it. It's a muscle that needs to be exercised as well.
Love it.
There it is.
Taking the fitness analogy.
Yeah. So
That makes sense. It doesn't have to be huge changes.
no.
Yeah. So then, as you know, people who frequent a gym or people who are just out and about in the regular world, what are small things or big things that a person can do to help this kind of move along in a direction of more diversity, equity?
Like, are you asking from the perspective of?
From your perspective of your profession, what do you think people can kind of do on a day-to-day basis that might actually help this process move forward in businesses? So let's say somebody's going to a gym and they're finding that, you know, they could probably use an EDI consultant. We'll put your info at the end, just saying. But they could probably use an EDI consultant. But as a client, I don't know how to relay that to the business, or I don't know how to feel like I'm helping other people feel included in that gym space.
Oh dear. That's a lot of burden to put on one person. Like the burden of actually bringing up, hey, you have a gap here. Like well, I would like to see you address this. It's quite scary for some people. Or I frankly don't know how to answer that question. Like, how would they tell somebody? Like, how would they tell a gym that they frequented that, hey, you're missing this?
Well, they'd probably just go somewhere else, right?
Yeah, like I've just quit and gone somewhere else. Like, I can't do this anymore. Yeah. You're right. I've been in that situation where I'm like, the space really needs a bit more, like, it just needs a little bit more. People need, the owners of this gym or the people who are running this gym need to assess the way they're doing things. To be more inclusive, and I just like, forget it. It's too big of an emotion. It's too big of a burden on me. I'm just leaving. So that's what happens most of the time. So you lose patrons.
You lose community too, right? Like, and I think that's a big part of it. It's not just about losing patrons, is that you lose an aspect of community, and you kind of watch your business go in a direction where you are a niche, and that's fine. Everyone has their niche, but you also want to feel diverse within that niche, I like to think.
Yeah, inclusive within that niche. Yeah.
And then on a regular basis too, this was the other part of my question, as a person who's just walking through life, what are small tips that you can have for somebody that can help them have practices that actually feel inclusive to others, feel...
Can I ask it a different way?
Sure, please. I feel like I'm not phrasing it properly.
Like, how does one examine like their own practices so that they can recognize if they are in fact perpetrating certain like things like microaggressions and like
Or excluding
or like ableism or any of those types of things? Like, is there like a BuzzFeed checklist I can like check out online, or like
Her face. She's like, I don't think so.
no,
I feel like you're asking me to do your homework for you, but
No,
okay,
not at all.
pass.
nope.
Things that you could do to examine your practices and whatnot.
Like, I mean, because
What are some
you're
good
right,
self-questions, really?
it is about like educating like the self and then recognizing and changing, but like a lot of people never have that like self-realization. They never get to that point of
They
like
don't know the first
clarity.
step of self-education.
Right.
But
So
isn't it like learning from
maybe that's a bad question.
people of color and people with disabilities and getting their lived experiences, and those are the things that make you realize your blind spots and issues like
Yes, but also asking your, like, questioning stuff, like going around and question, how come I only see white people in this space, or how come I only see able-bodied people in this space? And then not blatantly asking yourself, but like not blatantly going, please don't go to like people of color or from other marginalized communities, like, how come I don't see you at these spaces? Like, just question yourself, ask and do a bit of research, use the Google machine. That's
and there are people with jobs like you who,
Yes.
I mean, you do this for businesses, but you are a person that is here to like help these people do the work and like guide them along and make sure they're doing it in an inclusive way. And there are also like influencers, people of color who are doing this, that are doing the work, and you pay them for the work, and this is how you can learn. So it's not like you can't just look inside yourself and say, why am I racist? Like,
yeah, that's not going anywhere.
because you only have your perspective and your lived experience. So
Yeah, and not taking like the world that you function in for granted. Like, this was not the way it has always been.
Yeah.
Like, there has been a lot of influences. There's a lot of like processes that have gotten us here. Like, there's a lot of we are not in this space because this is just how the world is. No, there's a lot of other factors that have created this world. Like, I mean, we are on right now on the unceded territory of the Hakaminam First Speaking Peoples, which is which includes the Kakite First Nations. And if you look around here, this probably used to be where the Kakite village was, and they probably had their own economies, their food systems, their cultures, way before European settlers came, and now we are and that has all been the space. The way that we are right now has not always been the way that things are.
Yeah.
So yeah, a lot of questioning yourself, and a lot of a lot of questioning how things have become this way. A lot of like, why, like small questions like why do gyms, how come gyms open up in places where there's likely going to be a Starbucks? Like, how come in the downtown east side there's like no amenities whatsoever? How come amenities are much more of a better quality or higher quality in wealthier neighborhoods? How come? Why do these things happen? How come? What else can I say?
how come reservations don't have clean drinking water?
Yeah.
That's a big question.
Yeah. So a lot of questions that I think, a lot of questions that you could ask and also find the answers to, and a lot of people that you could, a lot of answers can probably be found on the internet if you look properly. But yeah, so that's,
But isn't that the game, right? Like, looking properly. That's kind of the issue, because I mean,
Well, that's paying people, hiring the people.
Well,
But-
yeah, but I
yeah.
mean,
And
but I
then-
mean, I'm just sorry. Go ahead. You go ahead.
I was just going to say that's a really good point, because I think a lot of the time when people talk about self-education, they're expecting free education, right? But nothing is free. But this might go back into the whole entertainment thing, where we're expected to get that for free, right? Instead of paying for a service to actually learn properly.
But yeah, not even that. Like, there are a lot of really good resources online. Yes, that I think you can't rely on someone's emotional labor to explain to you why things are like that for free, because it is taxing. It is to speak about like, don't take this personally. Like, I'm so happy to come here and talk to you because I am a fan of all of you and what you've been doing with Jeff. But like, don't accept
With or to?
to Jeff. It's like, you don't. I do this for work. Like, if my if like my white friends kind of want to come to me and ask me to like explain in depth like what talk about my lived experience as a BIPOC person, I would be like, maybe, yeah, I'm not working right now.
Well, because that's putting you on display.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
But also, like, I'm not, like, there are resources that are written by like folks from, like, who are non-white folks, like say on racism. Like, there are resources that are written by really good Black academic scholars who write in a very accessible language, or that are out there that you could easily access. So yeah. So the next thing I would also talk about would be, like you say, there's a lot of things out there. Like, well, make sure your sources are written by like people of color. Like,
And it's interesting you say that, because I recently bought a book on white feminism, and I saw that the foreword was written by a person of color. I'm like, great. So I assumed that the book was written by a person of color. And then when I went back and actually looked at it, it wasn't. And then I felt disappointed, because I'm like, well, this is not the perspective that I was hoping to get. So looking up who's actually written what you're reading is really important to feel that you're actually getting a good representation of information.
Even the
Yeah.
movies you're watching, like
Even the movies you're watching.
who's the director, who's the writer, who's the producer, who's controlling what people say. You know, is it just that they're choosing an actor and they're tokenizing them, or is it actually real lived perspectives that you're getting to see in film?
yeah. And not to say that white folks can't also write about white feminism, or white folks can't, okay, I'm just talking about race now, that they can't have a perspective or express their scholarly or informed critiques on race. You also want to look at the work that they've done, like which communities have they worked with, like what their credentials are, like who their colleagues are, what kind of institutions they come from, like yeah, things like that. So you, like, are they like from the Fraser think tank? Does this Fraser Institute, like, do they work for them? Like, do have any affiliations? It's a right wing like think tank.
Conservative.
Like,
think
yeah.
tank,
So you kind of want to pick and choose your sources carefully as well. But yeah, white folks are welcome to also write things and write perspectives on this, informed perspectives.
We're going to conclude there. Thank you so much for coming. I feel like I've learned so much from this today,
Yeah,
and I
thank
can't
you.
wait to think more on what we've talked about today and see how we can incorporate some of those practices into our own business. And thank you. If there's any information that you want to share with our listeners, like if anybody's interested in an EDI consultant, we will have Halimah's information for you. And thank you so much for your time today.
Ooh,
Thank you.
Thank you for having me. I had so much fun.
Thank you so much.